All right, so in this video, I'm going to discuss margin of safety. So it's a pretty simple concept that I'm going to break down kind of I kind of copied the NASDAQ 100, an ETF such as QQQ would have a similar map, just to try and show you what's going on here. So on the y-axis, we have our value in dollars. So this could be 100, 150, 200, whatever the price of that ETF is at the time. And then we have our time in years. And notice how I started at 2000 and went all the way to 2025, which is currently around where we're at. So what a margin of safety does is it makes sure that your average doesn't go too far off. So for example, say you bought at the peak of the dot-com bubble in 2000. Your average would be somewhere around this $200 mark. Now, if you got scared and you were like, man, I shouldn't have done that, and you sold everything, well, then this doesn't even matter. You no longer have a position in here. However, if you got scared and just held your position because you've heard people say, hey, don't sell, like it will go back up over time. Well, if you never would have put anything else in there, you would have held this 200 and it would have took you back until 2015, so about 15 years before you started seeing gains again, which for most people would be a long time. So depending on your investment horizon, your strategy should be slightly different. For example, a lot of people say just dollar cost average into the market because they're thinking very long term. So if you're getting closer to the time that you want to utilize the money that you've invested to enjoy your life, then you have to pay attention to the margin of safety. So for example, instead, maybe what you could have done is you had bought at the peak of the dot-com bubble, then it started crashing. Instead of just pausing and freaking out, all these green arrows here, you could have just started dollar cost averaging all the way down. What that would have done is, like this purple arrow shows, that would have reduced this average. So maybe you went down to 150. Maybe you would have recovered by 2013. So that would have given you 2 years less than the 15 original years that you would have had to wait to where you start seeing gains and you start seeing green in your portfolio. Maybe you would have went super hard and got this average down to 100. Then you would have started seeing gains shortly after 2010. You would have shed 5 years off of that. So your margin of safety works in that way, is the lower your average is, the quicker you'll see gains. You're dumping more money in to fix that average because you're dumping more money in at lower prices. If you had bought at 200, and if you had just bought at 200, it's going to be pretty easy to correct that average because you didn't put that much money in there. Now you have all this time, the next 5 years, to dollar cost average, and then you have another 5 years on top of that to dollar cost average into $100, which will significantly reduce your average. Now say it goes the other way. What you do with margin of safety on the other way is if you just keep dollar cost averaging up and then we have another downturn. So for example, right now we're kind of going through a downturn. So if this turns into a bear market and you had just been dollar cost averaging up here, maybe your average is going to be pretty high. So, or you wait, you buy a little bit here, buy a little bit here, so that your margin of safety starts shifting slowly at a comfortable pace. So that way you have the freedom to jump out of the market or stop investing at some point and start utilizing your investments to enjoy your life. You'll have more opportunity to do that if you focus on your margin of safety. Well, let me know if you have any questions about that in the comments. Like, subscribe, hit that bell for more. Life could be easier. Have a wonderful day.